Hello, everyone. Welcome to SureFire Live. Had a little technical difficulty getting started. Thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight, my good friend Chuck Hall is joining us. And I've been going over on my podcast a book that a lot of us are fans of, Extreme Ownership. And I know all of a sudden, on Facebook, and I know that actually I'm going to work with Chad Murray on a leadership thing. And leadership kind of becomes a big deal, especially when big leadership is always a big deal, but there are times it seems to really stand out. And, everybody has a different way of doing it, but, I've found that the Extreme Ownership book speaks to me as a leader. A lot of the things that they talk about ring true to me. Either it's something I'm already doing, or a lot of times it's something I need to do. And I think that the book a lot of times rings true to a lot of people. So we're going to go over that. And Chuck, I know, has read the book. He's also implemented some of the things in his business. And we are going to discuss the good and the bad about it. Because I sent him a message. He said, "Hey, man, I'm going to be honest with you. I sometimes struggle with reading the book, talking to my guys about it, and then implement it." So I said, that's as good a thing to talk about as anything, is the struggle. Another thing that happened to me, it's kind of crazy. I'm going to put it out there because it's just so crazy. I get a call today from a friend of mine that works. I used to know her here in town. She moved to Texas and started working for Blue Origin, the Jeff Bezos rocket company. And I get a call today, and she's wanting to have our chocolates be part of the astronaut package of what's happening down there. I'm like, absolutely, yes, send us. Because the funny thing, one of our bonbons looks like their pod that goes on top of the rocket. So it looks just like it anyway. It's pretty funny. But she's like, "Do you know anybody who wants to be an astronaut?" And I said, "Me." I said, "Me, sign me up. What do I got to do?" And she's like, "Yeah, we're offering, I'm in charge of astronaut services, like finding astronauts to do." It's become that now. And I'm like, heck yeah. I mean, what's it take? She goes, "Well, we got to talk to you. You can't put anything in writing." But basically, I'm thinking there's a certain number I had in my head that I was good with. I knew it was going to be kind of expensive. She came to me with a very high number, what it was going to take, higher than I was comfortable with. She said, "Well, I can give it to you for half that," but half of it was still uncomfortable. You can't really say numbers, but it's a pretty big number. And she said, "Do you know anybody that wants to do that?" And I said, "Well, I got some friends that do pretty well, and let me go around the horn." And everybody thought it was a great, exciting thing, but nobody would pull. I got one guy that may pull the trigger. He's a big builder, very successful guy that I know. But anyway, it was a funny thing. We get from bonbons to being an astronaut. So it was a fun day. So with that, I'm going to move into that. And also I'm going to talk just a little bit about sweet boy cancer before we get going. Guys, this is a two-way conversation. If you want to talk to me, great. If you want to talk to Chuck, great. If you want to say anything about leadership, anything we're going over, or you just want to say hi, please do. So with that, let me bring on Mr. Chuck. Hey, buddy.
Hey, man. Glad to be here.
How are you doing?
Fantastic. Living the dream right now. It's a little bit slow. It's a little bit slow in the transition, between
the trenches and the transition. Like, what's slow?
For us, we ramped up our company to do 10 million. And I've got all these crews, and we are finding it. We're booking out sometimes only 3 days ahead.
Right.
With
It's a
something like
hungry machine, isn't it? It's a
It
hungry
is.
machine.
It is a hungry machine. So I'm living that dream right now of trying to be booked out a week, 2 weeks.
If you can maintain that, I love that, but it's uncomfortable. And if it hiccups a little bit, all of a sudden there's not work for the next day for several crews. But we in our industry have gotten used to being booked out weeks and weeks and even months. But I do feel a little bit of a change in the air, as far as price increases and need for services and that kind of thing. My Nashville market is very booked out, but my other markets have slowed dramatically. And so are you seeing that, or you've just gotten so much bigger that it's a hungry monster and it's eating it up faster?
I love that you said that it's happening to you. I love that. So it makes me a little anxious, like it makes everybody anxious, when we put it out there, and we make a pact with our employees that you come to work for me, I'm gonna get you 40 plus hours a week, and then we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. We've got we have what's called we won the game, one pending booking. And in one pending booking are jobs that are there. And then when they turn green, our handlers pull them out, and we start the process to go through our company, which means there has to be a cover sheet and material list and all of these things done, and it goes through the system. We have 50 jobs in one pending booking that are red because we can't get all the parts for the appliances.
Right.
Yeah.
Today, I had a stove, had no handles, no installation manual, and something else missing on the inside. We've been waiting on it since October. It ships without all the stuff. Yeah. I mean, I know exactly what you're saying. It also affects accounts receivable, right? Cash flow, because you can't close the dang job. You've got the expenses, you've paid for everything, and you can't get the job to go off. So you got expense out there that you can't get paid for.
It makes the numbers look bad. We've got a managers meeting tomorrow, and we're going to look at the numbers. And then we laid out all this cash for these AccuCraft jobs. If anyone that's ever done an AccuCraft, those commercial jobs, we've got 2 of them that are going in Catholic University, one this week and one like in a month. We had all cash up front, no money, paid for it. We have one going in at Reagan International Airport next week, and we're out all this cash. So the numbers don't look tasty right now.
It's so funny. Some of these big jobs you really get smacked on. They look good, but they smack you sometimes. So we got one. It's not a huge job. It's kind of big. It's a $20,000 chimney cap job with just chimney caps, which is a big job in a way, but they're really big chimneys. Got to do them off a crane, all that. We gave the guy the bid, and we said, hey, let us put the pipe in for the units. Let us put the caps on. Let us do this part. And he's like, well, the guy who installed the fireplaces, he's going to go ahead and run the pipe. And we're like, okay. We get out there. They had poured concrete around the tops of the prefab pipes this deep. And these things are like 100 and some. I mean, they're 6 foot wide, 6 feet long, 4 feet and more, bigger, full of concrete around a pipe. And if those of you that aren't chimney, that has to have airspace around it. It can't be full of concrete around the pipe. And we called it, and we got cranes out there and everything. We finally get up to it. We're like, what's all this concrete doing up here? Just totally shut down the job. Just, you know how it is. It's just those big, it'll pay if it goes well, but when it goes wrong, it can go really wrong. So
that's what it is. One of my mentors told me a long time ago when we started getting into commercial work, he said, you got to have a driver there. There needs to be a driver on that. You can't do anything about that particular job. Right. But when you have somebody there that's not able to talk to a superintendent and say, we need to get this done today. We are here. We're supposed to be here to get it done. Somebody else is in our space. You have to move that. You got to move them. And if you don't have someone that's a driver that's confident, your job can take.
That's a good point. Well, man, thank you for joining me tonight. This is a kind of an ongoing theme that I've been working on with the Extreme Ownership. We're working through this book as a project for my company, especially for my estimators and my leaders. And I know a few years ago, you kind of did this exercise with your company. Is that right?
We did. And I didn't do it as well as you're doing it. I wasn't as organized, and we didn't go through it piece by piece. I just said, this is a great book. I gave it to my supervisors and my general manager, and I said, read this book and then let's discuss it, which is the typical crap that I do, which is push the wagon halfway up the hill, and then I get involved with something else, and I expect everybody to do what I ask them to do, and it turns out that they usually don't.
Okay, so I'll tell everybody how I'm doing. In case you want to do something like this in your company, we do it on Audibles. If you want to read it, you can, but we use Audible. And I assign 2 chapters, basically been assigned 2 chapters a week. I know what it is. I make some notes on it, and then we have a Zoom call on it, and we talk about it. We talk about what we learned, what we liked about it, and I will ask specific questions of the guys. So to make sure they did listen to it or they don't listen to it, ask everybody to be very honest if they got a chance to or not. But if you can't have too many things where you couldn't listen to 2 chapters. In the middle of that, we had your guy, Ryan Hall. He talked about extreme ownership in his talk. So he was in the middle of our thing. So it's been good. The guys have been spotting extreme ownership stuff and how to take extreme ownership. So I made some notes in tonight's broadcast. So I wanted to show this, and this is it. Extreme ownership is taking absolute responsibility for everything that impacts your team's mission. So talk about that for a minute. I know you're very good at taking ownership of problems, but you're also really good at helping other people understand how they messed up. So how do you look at this statement?
So I look at that statement, and one of the things that immediately pops out to me is that when we're taking responsibility, that the team leader, whether it's me, it's a supervisor, it's a lead man on the job, whoever the leader is at that point, they can't, when a mistake is made, they have to make it a safe environment. So when a mistake is made, that you're not screaming at the people and you're not tearing them down. And that is something that I've learned over the years, that it just doesn't work. And it's better to take this person aside, coach them up, talk about the mistake that was made, and then move ahead. And it's not being angry, not showing your ass, so to speak, which, I did for years and years, and it doesn't really do you any good.
Well, I think especially if you do it too much, right? If you're too angry, if you're always going to blow up, then it doesn't mean anything. I think if you rarely blow up, it has more impact than if you blow up all the time. If you're always angry or always this or always that, people start to try to normalize it and they try to minimize it. I think if you're always one way or another, typically, to your point, you need to be level-headed in most things. Now, I got to say there's times I've blown up. But if I've blown up, the team almost recognizes that they've really done something to make me blow up. And normally they come around and go, hey, man, at the end of the day, though, this is my name on the business. This is my responsibility 100%. I either got to train you up, I got to bring you up, or I got to move you out. And it's totally my responsibility, the results we get. And I was telling a story. I was at a guy's house where we absolutely botched it. We just multiple things. You know how they are. Sometimes you just can't get out of your own way. And it was right in the middle of COVID, and a bunch of my guys were sick. All the excuses, And at the end of the day, we were there, and my guy was saying, "Hey, Mister, this is my fault. I messed this up." And the guy turned and looked right at me and goes, "No, this is your fault. this is you. This is your fault. He looks right at me and I'm like, it is absolutely my fault. And I'm going to own this thing. And we will, and then we went through the process and actually we do the job this week, finish it up. But how do you own it? When you're getting pushed on it, how do you own that in front of your guys?
Well, I just call it falling on my sword. And when something like that happens, and they happen in everybody's company, and we talk about them in our morning meetings sometimes when we get a red, when we get a red, something didn't happen. And it's like, okay, that's a mistake. We made a mistake.
Say that again. You get a red? What's that mean?
So we track 4 things every single day with 4 old school calendars, and they're up on a board, on an easel. And every single day, we talk about safety. It's red, meaning somebody got hurt. Yellow means it's a near miss, and green means nothing happens.
Okay.
The next one is, what was quality? The next one is quality. Did we have a go back, a reserve, and we went back? And green means wasn't our fault. It was nothing.
Gotcha.
It was a good day. There were no go backs. Yellow means that there was something that happened, but it wasn't our fault. It was another contractor. It was user error. And then red means it was a problem. And then I forget the name of the third one. I look at it every single day, but it means, did we get everything done that was supposed to get done that day?
Right.
And sometimes it's, a green. Of course, yellow means maybe it was weather. We had rain out the wazoo. It didn't happen because of Mother Nature. Red means no, something happened.
Right.
Job didn't get done. Didn't get done because somebody made a mistake. The guy didn't say we needed scaffolding, or he said we needed scaffolding. We didn't need scaffolding, or a part wasn't there. They didn't check everything. Something happened. And so it happens every single day that we talk about a red. And then I say, okay, what's the job name? We write the job name down, because when we go over those things in our monthly meetings, and sometimes we have other meetings and just get them taken care of. But the person, whoever's job it was, usually just owns up and takes responsibility, because if they don't, what happens is I have these conversations and I'm just, I'm in their face, and I said, hey man, just tell us the truth, rip the Band-Aid off. We're going to get through it, but don't freaking lie and try to put it off on something else. So we've already had all that training and all those discussions. So whoever it is just said, yeah, that was my job. I didn't put something on here, and they own up to it. And then we just move past it. It's done. And nobody gets screamed at or anything like that.
That's a very similar to the way we do it. As a tactical beast in the mornings, we have that red, green, and you're looking for all green days, right? So you want green days. And green days make money. Green days keep you safe. Green days are what we're going for. Green days is a pretty good rock band. But
we had all red today.
So when we have red, normally red is our fault, right? Red is our fault. We have an orange that was out of our control, like no power to the house, or weather, or something that like that. Homeowner canceled the job and we showed up to the door because of COVID or whatever. So we have those two. We're looking for the reds. What handoff got messed up? What internal process did not happen? So a couple comments real quick. Chad Murray says, yeah, Chuck is great letting me know what I messed up. For real, Chuck's a great mentor. Mike Fazy says, perfect timing. We're going through extreme ownership as a company starting this week. My thought was that it would be better for the leads to review the chapters for their teams. Groups of 5 to 10 seem more manageable for everyone. To contribute. What are our thoughts? That's kind of what we're doing, but I don't have my leads hand off to my guys. I talk about it as a group. I may go back through. I want to see how it went through all my leads, and then I may review it with my individual teams. But it's kind of just becoming, I don't know if you've ever seen this, or maybe it happened for you, Chuck, where people start referencing extreme ownership. Well, the extreme ownership thing to do is this. That's when you feel like you're getting some type of a foothold with it. How did that work for you, or how did it not work for you?
So, like I said before, and then I gave people the opportunity for Audible or to, read the book. The only one that did it, and not even my general manager of 30 years, guys worked for me for 30 years and then became general manager, but he didn't even read it. But Ryan did. And Ryan takes full responsibility. He talks about it. He said, and he will just say, I own that. That's mine. That was my mistake.
So, Mike, I think whatever system you can do and you can manage it and make sure it happens all the way through is the best system. Whether it's a team thing or it's small individual, somehow you need to make sure that they read it first and then implement it. Ask questions is my main thing. Quick book report. Quick, give me what you thought about this. Give me 2 seconds on this. Like, not 2 seconds. Give me 2 minutes on this. And ask them the question, because for me, I've assigned books. I've even offered $100 if you'll read a book. Nobody does it. No, but if I'm sitting here forcing it through, again, you wish they would do it on their own. That may be the difference between somebody owning the company and somebody not owning the company. Maybe somebody that's comfortable versus somebody who's not comfortable. I'm never comfortable. I want to always be changing. Diane Pilger says, if it wasn't for the darkness, you wouldn't see the stars. I guess she's talking about when we're talking about the hard stuff. That's good stuff. Gareth Booth, one of the biggest topics in the book for me was the why. You must understand the why. If everyone doesn't know the why, it makes the overall mission confusing and difficult to get behind. Specifically on that in the book, what was happening was the U.S. soldiers were having to go with the Iraqi soldiers who were not trained very well. These Navy SEALs are the top guys in the world going with the scrubs. And they're like, why are we having to go out here with these guys? And we could get killed going with these guys. And you're asking us to bring these guys along. These guys don't know anything. And we're the top and they're the worst. Why are you doing it? So to his point in that, the why was, if you guys don't train these other guys, you'll never get to leave. You have got to bring them along or we'll never get out of here. And in the book, he talks about once we understood the why, we had to figure it out and get them trained. Now, we know years later, we totally botched that move out and none of that worked. That's a whole different leadership problem. But the why is important. When you're having to make a change, Chuck, to talk about what Gareth is saying, how do you disseminate it through the team what the why is?
It can be either done in small groups with the leaders, or it can be done in front of everyone. But when I think of the why, I take it all the way down and say the whys are why we have to install things a certain way. That's when I think of the whys and we're doing training, it's why it has to be 2 inches away. What happens? Because sometimes these younger installers, they don't understand. They'll put single wall pipe up, right next to wood and not understand the whys. Yeah. So the whys are, we are in a very dangerous, industry where we are venting poisonous gases and we have live fire in the middle of the living room. The reason why we keep clearances to combustibles is so that a house doesn't burn down and people don't die.
Right. So for that, I think a lot of chimney guys, that's the first step, but let's just say another one. To me, this one was a hard one. If you got to change a pay structure, or you've got to implement a safety program. And the guys are fine. They're like, hey, I'm fine with that. Yeah, we had that accident. That happened to the other guy, not me. How do you implement? What do you do with the hard conversations? And then I'll respond with kind of how we do it too. But I'm not saying either of them are right. But how do you disseminate the why on things that may not seem like a benefit?
Well, that's when we started the helmets. Yeah. We started the helmets. Now, I started the helmets in the fall when it was cooler. because I didn't try to wait, and I didn't do it in the summer. I could have done it in the summer, but that was going to be a lot of blowback. So we started when it was cold. So I made it easier on myself there. And then we told the story. We told 2 stories. One with about Jim Brewer's guy, who passed away, 8 feet 9 inches. And then we told the story of somebody else that lived. Francis told that story. Yeah, Hetch, at your place. And we were actually there. So I try to explain the whys, and then we start checking. And we start checking, and then that's where the rubber meets the road. And that's where we're not as good as we should be with the discipline.
It's the hardest thing. I have the same problem. I mean, we buy all the equipment, we give all the stuff, we give the why. Jim Brewer said his thing, Francis said her thing. I've had a guy break his back. I've had several guys break bones. It's still the hardest thing. And I can't be their babysitter. I've got things to do. At some point, it's back into their court. And I've done all I can do without firing people. And we have fired. Well, we haven't fired him. We've let people have days off or penalized them days. But why is important. It's not the end all, but it is. You got to start there. Couple other thing. Matt says also having us work. So Matt's one of my estimators. Matt's my most senior guy. Said also having us work together helps the implementation of what is read. Having Mark being one that's already read the book, we have different views on what was read, making us better as a team. And Matt's one of them that's really benefiting from this. And I love seeing Matt grow. Matt's been with me a long time, and he's been with me since he was a really young guy, and now he's not a super young guy, still a young guy, but he's learning, and Matt, he's a good-hearted guy. Let's move to the next topic, and this one's going to be funny. Put ego and personal motivations to the side.
Yeah, that's hard. So that's a hard one to practice for some people. For people like you that are humble, it's easy. For people like me and some others that I'm sure are on this call, Chad, it might not be as easy for us to put the ego aside, but that's what has to be done. And that's when you get level-headed, and that's when you just say, hey, this isn't going to work if I blow up, if I say, how can you do this? This is my company, blah, blah, blah. It's when you got to be level-headed.
I think, ego is, again, I think as we get older, probably our egos come down a few notches. You know how we see some of these younger business owners, younger guys have quite the ego, and us older salty dogs are like, you might want to pull that down a few notches because you haven't been through the storms we have. I think storms and problems can kind of, for me, it's definitely brought the ego out, down for me. And I'm really more of a mentor and I'm more of a guide than the hero or the leader. I'm more of trying to show you the best path if you'll take it. If not, man, I'm not in the motivation game. I'm not a motivator. I'm a leader in the sense that I want to show you and help you along the path, but motivation is a personal thing. You got to get motivated for it.
I'm big into coaching, and that's what we talk about is coaching guys up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you're probably going to talk about that. And that's when mistakes are made out in the field, what do you do?
Yeah.
Coach them up, man. Get them back in the game.
Yeah. Patch them up, cheer them on. We've all made mistakes. We just want to make new mistakes. What's it take? How did it happen? This last 2 weeks have been we've had one butt kicking after the next. And so many of them, I don't know why it's happening, but so many of them, they're not related. I can't point the finger at anything. It's just crazy situations that are we installed a Hearthstone stove yesterday, or tried to, brought it out. Guy's been waiting on it since October. We install it. We get his stove out of the way, bring our stove in, set it in place. It's a Bluestone stove, right? You've seen them. They're beautiful. The guy's like, it's not blue enough. We're like, what? It's blue stone. It actually gets more blue the more you use it. It darkens as it's exposed to heat. And he's like, it's not blue enough. We're like, It looks just like the brochure, and it's a naturally mined stone. We don't control. It's not like a blue, like I don't know, like tile or something. He's like, I don't want it. We're like,
Ooh.
And we drove like an hour south to put it in. And when they brought it back, I'm like, what is this doing in here? We've been waiting since October. Guy didn't want it. Like, this is insane. So quick story. I said, okay, this is terrible. What should we have learned from this? The one thing we should have learned from it is we should have not removed his stove and done all that and then uncrated it. We should have just brought him to the truck, uncrated it before. The only thing we could learn from it, I can't tell you what too blue is or not blue enough, but we could have saved ourselves a step by showing it to him before we got it off the truck and brought it in the house. But that being said, we were going to charge him a 25% restocking fee today. So basically $1,000. He's like, well, I'll bring it back and put it in. We're like, no problem, but it's another $1,000 for us to bring it and reinstall. And he said, fine. So that quickly, he just took $1,000 and lit it on fire in his living room and said, yeah, come back and do it. But we've had just stuff like that, just insane people.
I love to hear that. I love to hear that you're going through it. I mean, not because we are going through it as well. Yeah. And I just love to hear that somebody else is getting their ass kicked. Thank you.
It happens. I mean, that's just what business is. It seems, especially these times, I feel like it's harder than ever. But anyway, all right, next topic. Keep the mission as simple and clear as possible. Complexity causes confusion and makes execution more difficult. The simpler the strategy, the better. Tell me about.
So one of the other things that he says about that is simple doesn't always mean easy.
Right.
So simple doesn't always mean easy. And I will tell you, I make things difficult. And so when we are talking about making changes, okay, you know, we're like you, when you're going as fast as we are and trying to change things to get better, there's a lot of changes that are occurring. And I'm not good at keeping things simple. So one of the things that I do, and it's another thing that he talks about in his book, when he says, Chicago says, you need to go to your team and get input from your team about the mission, about whatever it is. And so that's one of the things that I'm doing more, and I'm using my supervisors and some of them are managers and some of them are just supervisors. I'm asking them, how do we do this? And I'm shutting my mouth, and I'm speaking less and asking more. And when I do that, it's amazing what you get from the table. And you're getting people that are better at simplifying things than I am. I make things difficult.
You know, and I've got a couple comments I'm going to read on what we just talked about. But to your point, you know, I read a thing about leadership, and leaders ask a lot of questions. The best leaders start with asking a lot of questions before giving an answer. A lot of times when somebody comes to you with a problem, you know the answer immediately. But a bad leader actually answers the question. Not a bad leader, an inexperienced leader, I should say. The best leaders don't answer that question. They help them get to the answer by asking questions. Tell me why you think this. Tell me how this happened again. How would you solve it? What do you think we should do? Why do you think we should do it that way? Help me understand the whole process. And then most of the time, they've already come to the conclusion, and you say, bingo, let's do that. After you've done that enough, they have the confidence to not have to come to you for the questions. They know they know the process. Ask the questions, make sure you have a good thing. If you're absolutely stuck, of course, but the best leaders do not answer the questions, especially initially. And you try to let them come to the solution, not you be the guru of all answers. It's easy for us because, of course, this is the answer: 2 inches airspace to combustibles, whatever the thing. But the better leader will just ask the questions first. And that's your point, is get them involved in it.
Real quick, though, I want to tell you
that
doing exactly what you're talking about doing is harder than it sounds. Takes a lot of practice. Second thing is you identify the dumbasses.
That's true.
That's a dumbass. That's the third time that guy has asked something. And when I asked him what he thought he should do, he was wrong. So I go, oh, I'm circling you.
You are not. That's very true. And thank you for putting it so clearly. It helps you identify the dumbasses because then when they speak, you're like, well, no. Quick thing, Bob Fawnin. Bob says, Chuck Hall, what do you do with your men on a day that goes south early? A little bit into tactics, but you can answer.
You know what? I don't even know. That's the problem. I don't know, but my supervisors know. So one of the things that we're having problems with right now is fleet maintenance. So when we have jobs that are going south, and I heard about this, I'm after the fact, is my logistics guy is sending them out and get the oil changed, get the new tires on, and we're focusing on fleet maintenance. So I'd love to say that we do all kinds of other wonderful things, but I don't know everything that we do because I got 55 people. I got managers that are handling that kind of stuff. And one of the things is fleet maintenance right now.
So you have a plan for them. For us too, recently I noticed a lot of guys, jobs go south, they get back, they cut out at 1 or 2, or the job goes quicker and they just cut out. And for us, we have GPS. I end up putting a geo fence around our lot. So I know when the guys get back. I get a notification when the guys get back, and they're supposed to have called their customer service person to see if there's anything else they can do, check with the team, and then go home. Now that's easier said than done. That's the idea, Bob, is to have the team check on the team. And then sometimes you got to send them home. Sometimes they deserve going home. Sometimes you need them to make money. So for us, it's check with the team first and then go home if you want to, or look for more work, and we'll work with you to get more jobs done. Mike Fazy says, we have posters, and as goes back to the why, we have posters in every room of an elephant, the rider, and a path. The rider is the logic, the elephant is the emotion, the why, and the path is the path to success. Nothing is making the elephant move without the why. It's a constant reminder to have better communication. Yeah, I mean, I think so. Now, everybody needs to know their why. If I have to make a change, they need to know the why. In a daily thing, they don't need to know the why other than their own why. But I agree with that, Mike. Good stuff. Chad says, in our why with the helmets and the climbing gear, I told several stories, begged, and finally made it. They must text the setup before getting on the roof. It's the best thing so far until it's now the culture. I like that. Chad says, my ego is humbled. It's now about them, not me.
Okay.
And then I think Bob tells me I had a nutcase. And we're getting a lot of comments. Humility is the most valuable thing that I am still learning. Jeremiah says, and it weighs 560 pounds. He was the one that we went to put the stove in that the guy said no about. That's hilarious. Josh Kate says, I thought we had all the crazies. I love to hear it too. That's funny, Josh. Yeah. The crazies are out, and they are amazing. Ryan Berry says, going through it here in the Midwest, too, must be something in the air. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know what it is, Chuck, but there's crazies. Everybody's going crazy. All right, let's go to the next step. Enforcing standards, and that's kind of what happened to my thing? My thing disappeared. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Something happened to my
You're still broadcasting.
I know, but something happened to my comment section. It disappeared on me. Anyway, I don't know how to get it back.
You fat fingered it.
I fat fingered it? Yeah, it's over here on the side. Anyway. All right, let's talk about enforcing standards. Like, there's been a big talk about, like attendance policies and getting people to do the work or enforcing your standards. How do you enforce standards, Chuck? Are you heavy? Are you light? Are you coaching? Are you,
so
where are you?
Let's talk about why you need to do it.
Okay.
So number one, if you're not doing it, your A players are watching and they're going to get pissed off. Oh, we just lost you. Well, we just lost Mark, but I'll go ahead and continue. He'll come back. If you are making mistakes, if people in the field are making mistakes, if there's things that are not happening, people aren't coming back, aren't showing up on time, whatever's happening, and you're not enforcing the standards, then that substandard becomes the new standard.
Exactly.
And that's a problem. And your A players, they may say nothing about it, but they've noticed that it's happening and they don't like it.
Yes.
Now, how do you enforce it? We do probably something very similar to you. We do the first little write-up. We have a nice little conversation about it. It's written up. Then the second time they get a written notice, and that tells them the next time this happens, they're going to be sent home for a day. Then the next time it happens after that, they're going to be sent home for 2 days. And the next time, it's like a 5-step process. And then you're going to be sent home for 3 days. And then after that, you're fired. But that doesn't mean you cannot be rehired.
Ooh. So we very much differ in the rehire. And I know you've had great success. I mean, Ryan is one of the best successes I've ever heard at a rehire. I do not have good luck rehiring. John Meredith called them retreads. He goes, we don't hire retreads. I struggle with rehiring. I've never had one work out. Why do you believe in that? Because of Ryan, or you've had other success with it?
We've had other success with it when we've had bullheaded people that didn't want to do what they were supposed to do. I'm not going to name this person, but he is very important to one of my divisions, and he's an older guy, and he didn't want to do some of these things, and so we fired him, and he was gone for like 3 or 4 days, and he said, I'm going to get better. And I'm like, okay. And he came back and he started doing the things that he was supposed to do. And I don't know if that's the right thing. Look, I'm making mistakes every day. You know. Yeah, I'm going to call him to see him. If I don't see him, I'm still going to, I'm going to make it up.
I want to believe in him. I really do. But I'll tell you this. I said it on the Facebook thing that, and I saw it somewhere where discipline has a better attendance record than motivation. And me, the last thing I ever want to do is discipline people. But I've realized that, man, if I don't, we've got a lot of people now. And if I don't, what happens is my good people don't need any discipline. It's the disciplining the people that need it to save my good people. They don't ever need discipline, or maybe just some guidance, but the discipline comes because my good people don't have the ability to do it. And you don't want 40 people doing discipline. Now I went from trying to be the good guy to now I am the hammer. And I don't mind it. I actually know that it's needed for my team because we've tried the other thing. We've tried the other way of being super nice and please begging you to do the right thing. And now we just, I'm not saying it's heavy by any means, but it's heavier than it used to be. And it's now my role to enforce the standards. And to your point, if you let a standard be brought into the game, and it's a lower standard, whether it be attendance or quality of work or how you talk to people, whatever you just accepted as okay is now the new standard.
Yep, that's it. And the A players don't like that.
Yeah. You said you got 50 plus people. How many A players do you have, and how many F players do you have?
It's funny that you asked that because we did a process through our company where we actually ranked everybody.
Right. She told us about that when you were at the Mecca thing.
Yes. Yeah. So we've just going through that, and we do a yearly, based on performance reviews, yearly bonuses, profit sharing. Mm-hmm. And my general manager and I just went through all of them just the other day. And we're just deciding like, wow, that guy's a 1, instead of a 10. And there, if there's a 10, then there's a 9, and they're 1, and then there's a 2 and a 3. And, so you didn't just have a bunch of 10s, but there were some higher ranked people. And I got to say, we're probably 25% are the high achievers, and we probably got 25% low achievers.
Well, but that's a sliding scale, I think, because I can tell you my low achievers now would be some of my best achievers 10 years ago. Yeah. Like we're a different company completely. Like a lot of the guys that were my number 1 guys in the past wouldn't even make it to the team now because our standards are higher. Our whole system is better. So it's a sliding scale. And so now, yeah, there's guys on the bottom of the scale now, but there also could have been the best I ever had 10 years ago, and they would be the best somebody else has in their company.
100%.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
So for us too, it comes from enforcing those standards. So for some reason, I had all these questions lined up and my whole screen is messed up. I'm barely able to control the show now. I don't know why. It's exploded out and I'm fighting it. So we're just going to have to talk it through. I think we've got a few more minutes left. But anything else on leadership? Let's just talk about it's not what you say, it's what you tolerate.
Well, that just goes back to the whole thing that we were just talking about. You're tolerating it. And one of my guys was yelling at one of the installers, yelling at him, not in, kind of off to the side. And we had to dig into that because I don't want to tolerate that. I don't want to tolerate that. So we had to then talk to everybody and try to smooth it out, find out what the problem was, and then have a conversation with that person saying that is not acceptable.
Yeah.
You had reason to, I get it, but that's not acceptable.
Another thing too is small levels of disrespect that you have to really keep an eye on and say something quickly. You're doing a meeting, you got guys on the phone. You're doing a meeting, you got side conversations going on. One of my guys was doing some training for the group the other day and several guys had side conversations going on, showing their iPads, doing other stuff. I wasn't there, but I told my guy that was training, I'm like, you have to call that out. You can't allow it just to happen because it spreads. You have to call it out immediately when it's happening and demand that respect or you won't get it. And so again, it's not what you say, it's what you tolerate. In this situation, one of my leaders was just tolerating being disrespected. And I had to tell him, I'm like, you have my permission to absolutely embarrass that person. If you're the trainer, you're the boss in this case, you're my representative, take control of the room. I know you don't have a problem with it, but what happens for you when you hand off leadership to another leader and they don't do it like you do it? How do you handle that?
Just the way you did. You've got to coach them up. But sometimes I don't see it. Like when I travel a lot like you do, and I'm not there. When I run the morning meetings, man, everyone is there in their seat. And if they're not, I'm like, hey, what's going on? You're late. I'm running this meeting. And if somebody, is talking in the background, it's like, hey, what the fuck do you got to say? Tell us all. And so that stuff doesn't happen very much, but I'm running the meeting here. We're trying to get people in and out of here in like 9 minutes, let's go.
It only takes once and they stop doing it, right? When you call it out like that, that changes the whole game.
Yeah. And I said, this is nice, Chuck. This is nice, Chuck, here. Come on, man. Let's get through this together. And when there's someone that I hear things and you have to take that person aside and you say, hey, what happened?
Yeah.
Oh, that's horrible. Like I tell some of my supervisors, I say, management is acting. That's what it is. Oh my gosh. Yes. Tell me more about that. Oh, that's horrible. Gee.
You're a great actor.
But I don't, because inside I'm like, I don't give a shit what you just, inside, but I'm like, oh. And then you have to be calm and say, we can't have that anymore.
Yeah.
But inside, you're just like, you just want to.
Well, again, it's a situation where we know the answer. We know the answer already, and we're trying to coach somebody up to get to the answer. And to your point, that's the acting part, because you already know exactly what you would have done, but we're trying to not do all the work and let them come to our answer or our way of leadership. And that is just the toughest thing. What you just said it is tough, but I'm like, why do you do that? Do this, do this, do this. But that's not our role anymore. If you've done it, now you got to hand it off and teach it.
Right.
I got my comments back.
Okay, good. Because I have a whole bunch of things. If you don't have, we'll let you run the show.
No, Pamela says, if you're on time, you're late. So Pamela runs a lot of our production, and she runs a lot of our crews, but she's right about that. Chad says, this is an Emmy award, not an Oscar, Chuck. So what were you going to say? You said you had a couple things.
Well, one of the other things is promoting leaders, is just like you're doing with your lead men, but then within also sometimes putting together team leads, and you promote them, you do it formally, and sometimes it is the best thing that you could have done, and other times it turns into a nightmare and you get a little Napoleon.
Yeah. Well, that goes to the Peter principle, right? You promote people to the level of their incompetence, and you don't know what that is until they become incompetent. And you don't know what that is because they did such a great job with this. You're like, okay, you're amazing at this. Let me move you to this. And man, that can be a good move. And it can also be a terrible move, because they literally, because they were a great salesman, estimator does not mean they'll be a great manager of salespeople and estimators. Because they were a great technician doesn't mean they're going to be a great leader of technicians. Like, one doesn't equal the other. Now, sometimes it does. If you really hit the gold, one equals the other. But many times it doesn't. Sometimes the best managers are the guys who aren't out front. They're like in the back. They're like quiet. But they are actually the best managers of people, where the best sales guys and most boisterous guys, the most in charge, know-it-all guys aren't necessarily the ones to lead others. And also, you can really handicap your team. I've seen people take their best sales guy and make him a manager. Sometimes that absolutely, like, you can have a unicorn. It'd be like Ryan. He's so amazing. Can you imagine if you put him doing Rick's job? Now, could he do it? Yeah, but what would that do to your company?
Tear it apart. He'd sell us out of business.
Right.
It would be a nightmare. Believe me, we talked about it. The man is amazing. He has a lot of wonderful qualities, but being a manager is different. Believe it or not, am not a good manager either. I am not a good manager. There's lots of managers in between me and my people.
Same here. I'm not a manager at all. I'm not good at managing. I'm good at I'm like so hands off that's not what you need a manager to do. You need a manager to look at the system and help manage the system. I'm good at creating the system. I'm good at guiding the ship, but I'm not a man. I need you to manage you. I'm not manager of you. That I can barely manage me. Josh Kate says, oh, we got several. Let's see. Oh man. Jonah Lindley, he says, I like your style, Chuck.
Thank you, Jonah.
Christopher R. Miller says, just got a curiosity. U2 CEO how often are you two CEOs? How often do you go out on the trucks with your crew to get your hands dirty, clean a chimney, and clean chimneys? For me, I don't do that. In fact, I have. I have other guys do it on my company, but for me to actually go do that at this point would be almost a dereliction of my duties as to run the company. They need me doing other things. Now I need my trainers to go with them. I need my middle management guys to do it. And I used to do that, but it's actually no longer part of what I could do it, but it's not the best use of my time. What about you, Chuck?
I'm an inside cat now. Meow. My hands are soft like a baby's, and I'm definitely an inside cat. I will tell you, and this is what I find out when we're in these morning meetings, and somebody in a red comes up, and I'm like really. And then I'm asking these things, and then somebody will say, sometimes it's Ryan or somebody else will say, "Hey, Chuck, the 1990s, wants you to bring back that tech, from the 1990s, because we're not doing things like that anymore."
Right.
And I'm like, okay, you got me. And my guys are way ahead of me. They are better than I am.
Same
ever.
Here.
Way better than I am. Now, I used to, I took my fire class, and I could speak IRC chapter 10, right and left, backwards and forwards. And I used to be really technically sound, but that's not where my expertise and my vision for our company is. My vision, my job is to make sure that everything runs the way it's supposed to, constant, never ending improvement every day, not sweeping a chimney.
Bart Ogden said that, Chris, they don't operate at that level. They moved past that a long time ago as they scaled up. And that's basically right. And don't get me wrong, Chris, it's very important for somebody to do it in my company. And I can tell you, I guarantee if I did that, I would learn a lot of things. I'm not saying I would never do it, but that's not the place for me in the company. It's not like I'm just sitting back watching the cash roll in. I just have different functions inside the team. My main thing is to find roadblocks in the company or bottlenecks and break them up and open them up. That's probably my main thing. And also to make sure the damn phone rings and the phone gets answered. That's kind of my role. Josh Kate says most great sales leaders are not the best sales guys. Yeah. There's a difference between a manager of the sales department and a salesman. And so you have to, and some people think they want to manage until they have to manage, and sometimes it's a lot easier not to do that. Let's see. JJ Soares said, just the man I wanted to see, Chucky. Matthew Watkins says, inside cat. Christopher said something not nice. He said the P word. But anyway, good stuff. Lots of people are saying, let me see this question. I can't read it all. You all take out your own trash.
No, today. I took it out today, as a matter of fact.
When do you pick up the brass? I'm not sure what that means.
After shooting.
Oh, right. So, again, you run your business the way you run it. I want to run it the way I want to run it. I stay in my lane, what I'm strong at. I find also if I get in other people's lanes, I usually mess it up. The bigger I've gotten, the less actual job I have. I kind of have to find my own thing to work on. And that's my job, is to locate it, find it, work on it, improve it, bring new things to the company. Just like this book, if I didn't bring this extreme ownership whole idea to my company, it would not come. So these kind of things I look at and I try to bring those into the company and enforce them as I want it to be, the shadow of the leader kind of thing. So with that, did you have, I know we're about out of time, and I thank you so much did you have something else you wanted to go over?
No, except that a lot of us are great at making decisions. And one of the things he talks about in the book is be decisive, make the decision, right or wrong. You got to make that decision. And the road of life is paved with flat squirrels that couldn't make a decision. So make the decision, baby, and make it happen.
Flat squirrels couldn't make a decision. It is the killer. I find, and this is just a little peeve of mine, but when you go to a restaurant, you can see the decision makers and the people who can't decide. And a lot of times you can tell a lot about their personality about how long they take to order. Like as soon as I sat down, boom, I want this, I'm done. And now I'm talking. And then the person comes around like and a lot of people haven't even looked at the dang menu. I'm like, I looked at it immediately, I'm done. But then they're like, yeah, come back. And then, they can't decide. And that to me, to your point,
drives me nuts.
But anyway, it's, I may do one more on extreme ownership. I like it so much and I lost all my questions and we went through the time, but you were so great at reaching out and helping me today. And I appreciate your leadership and all you've done. You're building a world-class company. And like I said, I like to watch you go through stuff because you're amazing because you go through so fast, and then some are good and some are bad. Bart Ogden says, and you have to get that kill shot as low in the organization as possible. I'm not sure what he means by that. Does that make sense?
I not to me, except that you got to get rid of bad people.
Yeah, you do. It's your job. I think that's his point is for us, we also have to move people through so we can have a better and better organization. But
I call it culling the herd.
Yeah.
I got to take all the weaklings. I got to get them out. We're not a strong pack if we got, a three-legged Lucy on the back.
Well, and again, I'm just close with this. A lot of the people that were listening are on Facebook this week where they work with smaller companies. So they're like, yeah, it's easy for you guys to say, get rid of people. Well, I can barely get somebody. Like I can only get a couple of guys. And for me to lose a guy on attendance or for me to lose a guy because he yelled or he didn't do his paperwork right or wouldn't wear his helmet, like that's easy for you to say, but I can barely get a guy. But I can tell you for me, whatever you tolerate, it's hard to then move forward. And it's easier to get a person and grow on all the right stuff than try to tolerate the bad stuff and work your way through it. You will save yourself a lot of headaches by having standards and keeping to them. Of course, we're all human. We want to be good bosses, but if you tolerate being late, your whole dang organization will be late. And I saw somebody say, well, you should motivate them to not want to be late. Well, that's not how motivation works. I mean,
it's hard to motivate people. They have to be self-motivated.
It's not my job to motivate you. I want to give you direction, but I'm not a motivator. That's not my job to answer all your questions and motivate you. That's not my role. Matt says, Mark being in his current position has made our company where it is. Mark being in the everyday jobs, our growth would have been very limited. Yeah, I mean, could I do them? Sure. But that's, again, as soon as I stepped out of that, my job wasn't to do the job. My job was to create jobs. And then my job now is to make sure I take care of the people who take care of my customers. That's my job. Take care of my people so they can take care of the customers and we all win. Chad says, hiring is the hardest lesson to learn as a smaller company. Always hiring gives solutions to accountability. Yeah. When you have a pretty good turnover of people coming in, you do have more options. So you can put up with less crap.
100%. But that's hard when you're a really small company. Yeah. When you lose one of your guys, when one of your guys calls in sick, that's 25% of your workforce.
Exactly.
What are you going to do, man?
Right. Or you're a three-man operation. You lose one guy because he's late. Now you're 33% down, and now you got more work on yourself, and you were already busy. Like that's a killer place. I mean, it's the funny thing about growth is it actually gets easier the bigger you get, which as a small company doesn't make sense at all. It seems like more and more chaos. But there's a tipping point, and to me, it was like about five to six trucks. We tipped into actually it's easier now than it was at 3 trucks. And we've talked about it for years, but there's a tipping point where this thing, you can grow a lot faster, and it's actually not harder. It becomes easier in a lot of ways. Do you find that to be true?
100%. But I got to tell you, 4 and 5 trucks was a S show. It was an S show for sure. And we were there for years.
Yeah.
For years, we were there. Pop, 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 up and down, up and down, up and down. It was a nightmare, like right around that million. Oof.
Yeah. The million is tough. Now, I know we keep saying we're going, but you hit on something, and this is how we always talk. But I remember watching you showed on one of your talks one time your growth chart, and you were bumping along, and then boom, you went like that. What was the thing that made you kind of start locking it all in for that kind of trajectory?
So people ask me that all the time, and I say that's when I started figuring out that I could not do this alone. Alone got me to where I was. So I brought in a fractional CFO. I joined a mixed group. I started going out to the industry. That's why I look at all these younger people that are starting these businesses, and I'm like, and they're coming up to me, at wherever and asking me questions. And I'm like, they didn't have any of these people when I were here. And if they did, I didn't know who they were because I wasn't going to the shows. I wasn't going to the trainings. I wasn't asking the right people the right questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once you start, I started asking the right people the right questions.
Yeah. Well, it's very obvious when you look at your trajectory and what was happening when you weren't asking questions, when you weren't involved, and then boom, you got involved, and your trajectory has been amazing. I think probably Chad's on here. He can probably say the same thing. Like, he was bumping along and had a good business, but once he kind of came out and got involved, his trajectory, I think Mike Fazy may say the same thing, like involvement. And it's always the same. The guys doing a lot of stuff, they're out there involved and they're picking up stuff and they're doing things with it. And the trajectory is as it kind of flows along with that involvement. Same for me. I bumped along. And then in 2008, I finally figured some stuff out and fixed it. And we've been on an amazing path since then. But I think that is, and I think Chad says this, I can barely see my comments. Yeah, getting involved was my biggest, greatest eye opener. Yeah. Good stuff. Well, brother, I know you're busy. I appreciate you. You're such a great friend to jump in and contribute so much. So I appreciate it, man.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I'll do it anytime.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
Take care.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sorry for my technical difficulties. Chuck always brings a very, very great eye to this and a very entertaining one at that. Lastly, I tried to mention it, but I couldn't bring it up, but the Sweetway Cancer Rally is May 20th and 21st. It is in the Smokies. You can bring a car, you can bring a truck, you can bring anything you want, not a bicycle because you can't keep up. But please, if you can, go to sweepawaycancer.com and click on there. If you can just donate and can't make it, please do so. We are giving away lots of money to people, lots of need. We get requests all the time, amazing stories of people that need help. And a lot of people have reached back out and said, hey, you helped us at this time, and we really appreciate it. And we're glad to do it. So sweepawaycancer.com, please come to the rally if you can. If you can't, please make a donation. And guys, that's my time. We'll talk to you next week. See you soon. Bye. If I can get out of here. I don't know that I can. I can't shut it off. Golly. Can't do it.